to the Startup Grind.
Tell us a little bit about where you came from. Are you from Zurich?
I'm actually from Germany. I came to Zurich to study game design at the University of Arts, ZHDK, as you might know it. And I kind of got stuck here after that. I got a job, and then one thing led to another, and now I'm at my own company.
So to back up a little bit, were you born in a small town, a big town? You come from a big city?
Very small town, actually. There wasn't a lot to do. Then, well, if you're social, which I'm not, you could go out and meet your friends, but I was rather sitting in front of my computer all day. This is how I got started with gaming in general.
So as a young child, how young were you when you had your first computer or access?
4 or 5, I guess. My father brought home a laptop, and I got hooked on these simple DOS games. You could start with the command line.
And did you already start tinkering around then? Did you start hacking?
Well, not really. I was more into playing, but around age, I guess 12 or 13, I got my first 3D modeling software, and I started designing houses and churches and all this kind of stuff at a very wrong scale. So the church was this big, and the house was also so big, but it was quite fun.
And at that time, did you already know you wanted to get into gaming development or 3D development? Or when did you realize that that's something you wanted to do long term?
Well, it was always the thing that brought most fun to my life. And I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else than gaming, so it was quite natural for me. But I think the moment I realized I wanted to do game design was when I played Final Fantasy X on the PS2. And I liked it so much, and I played like 3 times through it, and I thought I want to do something like that. But, well, Final Fantasy is dead now, so not Final Fantasy anymore, but something else.
Was there anything else you were interested in as a child, or like any other sports, or?
That's a good question. I did a lot of ballet because I had a very bad posture. I still have. Keep myself sitting upright. Karate, I actually did a lot of sports as a child, not much anymore. But it was really mostly gaming, so just sitting in front of the laptop, mostly with 2 or 3 of my friends, who were also girls, by the way, and we all shared the keyboard, just playing games on emulators and everything.
And when did you realize, were you very young, did you realize that you wanted to start your own business? Did you think when you grew up you wanted to run your own business, or you thought you'd work for EA or one of the big...
I always thought I wanted to work for a big company because they kept producing the games I like so much. But I worked in retail before I started to study, and then in some other company, and I really realized I hate having a boss. Really hate having a boss. So right now, when I screw up, it's my own fault, and I get mad at myself, or Sebastian gets mad at me, but at least it's like in the family. It's not some guy, just like, I like to give myself pressure to achieve things, but I don't like coming it from somewhere externally.
And Black Island.
Oh my, please don't talk about Black Island. Okay, let's do this.
So, who knows what the Oculus Rift is? Not very many people. So can you give us a brief intro?
I'm not getting up from this chair, so Sebastian has to get it.
The black box.
Yeah, the black box. So the Oculus Rift is a virtual reality goggles. You connect them to PC or Mac, and it has a screen inside. Thank you, you're doing this very well. With some lenses that stretch your vision, so you don't see the edge of the screen. You feel like you're really in it, and then you can look around, and it tracks your head movement. And yeah, you should you can't see where you're going. So that's basically it. You're just really immersed in this thing.
So Black Island was the first game you developed?
Well, we started it first. So the mistake I think we made was starting development for it before we had the goggles. So we thought we knew what game development was about. We had a clue about virtual reality, but we really didn't. So it's hard to imagine what it feels like or how you play with it when you don't have it. So I started on level designing, we started doing some code, we started doing some interactions, but then we put the goggles in it and we realized it was all wrong. We had to redesign the menus, we had to redesign the interaction, I had to redesign the level, and I don't think we got rid of everything that was wrong with the game, so I don't like it so much, but if you want to buy it, you can buy it.
But you need a goggle
You need the Oculus to play it. Yes, it's only Oculus, so the menus don't work at all. It's 3D, it works only with the Oculus.
Okay. And what's the average cost of a little pair of sunglasses like that?
The development kit is $300.
Oh.
We got it back when they did the Kickstarter campaign. I saw it on some social media sites, so it was really, really cool. And I showed it to Sebastian, and we got the kit immediately. And it arrived about a year ago, and then we were surprised to find that you could develop with it in Unity game engine, which we had already. And the SDK is free, and the support is free, and the developer relations guy is really nice. So it's really just $300 and some of your time. Cool. It's not expensive.
Yeah, that's very reasonable. And as far as in general, you like the whole concept of virtual reality. So do you live more in a virtual world or this world?
That's a good question. I have always been living more in the virtual world, I guess. I met my boyfriend in an online game.
Is he still your boyfriend?
Yes, we're going 10 years this year.
Wow, bravo.
Well, I actually moved to Zurich because of him, and then the game design came later because you could study it here, but, well, anyway. But, well, still 10 years.
Cool.
No, I've really used games as a means to escape from real life, I admit that. So the virtual reality glasses is, of course, something you can escape very easily with because you see nothing else. That might be a bit dangerous, but if the tech keeps being like that, you get nauseous after 1 hour, so you have to quit anyway. But yeah, I guess the virtual world is more my place to live than the real world, that's true.
And you've also used it in medicine or in rehabilitation.
The Oculus not yet.
Okay.
I have worked in medical rehab games and serious games. There's like a study group or research group of serious games in the medical sector at the ZHDK. And I got a job at U Rehab after I finished my studies. I worked there for about a year, a little less, in muscle rehabilitation. So they had these gloves they called U-Grabber. They have sensors on them, and when you move them, you train your muscles for like stroke patients or people that can't move their arm very well. And I developed some games so they could train without realizing because they were playing the game. But we haven't actually used the Oculus for that yet.
Okay, but you see a future in rehabilitation?
Well, the Oculus is something you really need to put your time into it. It focuses your attention, you're totally in there, and if you want to achieve a task that's really important, and if you have no distractions, so that would be really good. I'm not quite sure what you could use it for. I mean, I did a prototype for Alzheimer patients, which of course would be really cool on this because they're so in this. But at the conference I was last weekend, someone mentioned phobia training or something, which could be really scary, but also quite cool.
So the focus is mainly on games, on the game development.
Well, of course, we're game developers and we love developing games, but right now we're going more into like commercial applications for it, so product visualizations and stuff for exhibitions. It's really something you can portray your product or whatever you want to portray in a more emotional kind of way. So it's not something that displays like the technical aspect, but you could maybe have a look at the home you want to buy before it's built.
Mhm.
So you could do that on the Oculus.
Cool. I read an article this week that the international games market will rocket past $100 billion in the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see yourself in those $100 billion?
Well, that is
As a
Let's-
game designer,
as a game
Oculus
designer,
development.
I believe Oculus will always be, for gaming, more of a niche market, especially because the hardware is, okay, $300 is maybe not much if you want to develop for it, but it's roughly the cost of a PS4, and if you're thinking buying this one or a PS4, I'd buy the PS4, but so it's I see more as some kind of game target market, like the hardcore PC gamers that buy a new graphic card every year or every half year. But I do hope it gets picked up in the more commercial places where people actually have money to buy these things.
Mhm. And do you have a cat?
I do have a cat. You read my Twitter? You should see my cat.
Do you have any other pets?
I have 7 fishes. Yeah, they all have names and personalities.
Yeah. Are they in your game as well?
No, not yet. Though I'm actually thinking about. I really like one iPad game which was made for cats, and my one cat it loves it. Has like this laser pointer and it tries to catch it. And it's like really like when you have a child in a restaurant and you just give him your iPad to play. So if my cat complains, I just put the iPad on the couch and it plays for a few minutes, so it's quiet. And I think I like to do something like that one day.
Cool. So, what advice would you give a young Janina today? What would you tell yourself back when you were just starting out?
Touchy question. Not listening to what other people are saying, pretty much. The evil people. All the people I left back in Germany when I went here. So really just do what you think is best.
Follow your dream.
Without listening to what the other people think you should do. It worked out in the end, so.
And what would be one thing that could, one change that could help on the path of equality and entrepreneurship? What's something you've noticed? What do you think would be something that would make a difference, since we're on the topic of diversity today?
That is a hard question for me because I don't identify as female entrepreneur, but rather as entrepreneur. So if you ask me any questions about female and equality, I'm not very representative. But I don't like the idea of quotas or anything. I just go for just judge everyone on what they do and not based on their gender. So just entrepreneur. I mean, of course, we have a lot of catching up to do. So in the beginning, you really have to, until you reach that equality point, I wish we could get there right away, but I don't believe in overcompensating.
Well, you mentioned that around 90% of female in games are played by men. So from that perspective, that rings true to what you were saying about it's not about gender, it's about, if you look at the gaming environment, there is no quote-unquote gender, or there's very little.
Well, you can play as what you want in games. Well, there are some online games that you have to give your gender in the profile, you can only play as that. But yeah, there were a lot of men that played female characters in World of Warcraft. And it's always super confusing if you go to TeamSpeak and then this elf character suddenly talks in a very low voice. It's yeah, I guess they just like to look at female characters when they play rather than male ones. So it's not I don't think, well, at least with the people I talk to, it's not a question about identifying as the other character, but rather if I play this game for 10 years, I'd rather look at the female character from behind than the male one. That was basically the main reason for most of these guys.
Have you experienced any point in time where you felt like you've made it?
Not yet. Not yet. I mean, I get invited to these sort of things, but making it for me personally is a very personal thing, not something from the outside. So I think if I finally manage to do the one game I always dreamed of, I think I made it, but that's far off.
And what advice would you give to Swiss entrepreneurs looking to start a business today, based on your experience in launching your own business?
I guess if you want to start a business, you're already doing the right thing. Go out, talk with people, many people as you possibly can, because you meet them. Switzerland is so small, and you meet them everywhere all the time. So I know at least 10 people in this room. They probably don't remember me much, but so just go out, talk to people of whatever idea you have or whatever you want to do, and when you come back 2 years later and say, now I'm doing this, they will already know you and support you. At least that's what happened with us.
Mm-hmm. By the way, if anyone has a question while we're talking here, just raise your hand and we'll try to drag you in as well. So, what do you do when you have downtime?
Actually not playing games. I do a lot of game reviews and game testing, so I have to do this. This is scheduled time. There's rarely a game that I really enjoy nowadays, that I really take my time to play, but it's mostly, well, this article has to be there till Friday. I draw a lot and use the rest of my time learning Japanese. That has basically been all I've been doing in my free time since beginning of this year, learning Japanese.
How fluent are you?
Not chotto, not very much.
Cool.
So I understand a lot, but the talking is very hard.
For sure. Anyone else speak Japanese? Mickey? And what is a mistake that you would want other entrepreneurs to avoid?
Not keeping track of your time doing what you do. It's a hard thing to do if of course we start off with very little money and you need to build up the startup, not salary so high. Maybe you don't realize it. You work a lot, you want this thing to work, you keep working in your free time, and then of course that's all fine, you really want this thing to work, but then in the end of the month you sit there, what have I been doing? I have no clue. There was this offer, this prototype, and it really helps me to get a sense of progress if I keep track of my time. I haven't been doing that, I'm sorry. But it really helps to even like see, oh, there was only 20 hours this month. I actually earned money, so maybe that should be more.
And is there an app you use for that?
What's it called? I have no some online timekeeping thing which looks really really startup-y.
Okay, because it's always helpful. When I'm sure I'm sorry.
It's free. It's free.
It's free.
I don't know the name.
Yes, I mean it's always interesting for other people who would want to put your application, your suggestion into to apply that, but. Janina's on Twitter, and so you can, if you're really interested, you can drop her a line, and I'm sure she'll, tonight when she fills in the forms of how much time she spent today, she'll remember.
I should do that. I'm more on Twitter than anywhere else, actually. So if you want to catch me, don't write an email or don't call me. Please don't call me. I hate being on the phone. Please don't call me. There's a number on my card, on my business card, but please don't use it. So go on Twitter.
So you guys started off in one direction with your company, and then you had to change. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, we started off more by chance, I guess. So there was this project I got offered to do, which was augmented reality for a museum, for a castle, actually. And this project was too big to take on for my own. So I asked Sebastian, who I studied with, to work on this project together. That didn't quite work out. They didn't want to go with the more modern approach, but then in the end just put some signs everywhere, just real physical signs, imagine that. And well, then later we got another offer from the same agency. We worked together back then, and apparently it worked out really well, so we decided to, why not found the company to be like legally insured. If someone thinks we did something wrong, they can sue us and take my computer away.
And from your perspective, what would be the best way to define and understand a customer pain point? So you're working with clients now and developing augmented reality. Well, for now, it's just on the computer. It's not specifically with Oculus Rift for the clients you're working with.
It is mostly on iPad and iOS, just mobile applications.
So how do you determine or define and understand the customer pain point and what it is that they're trying to bring out? So for example,
luckily, they mostly come to us with a problem. So that's maybe not always their main pain point. They maybe find it out later. We try and make an analysis of who is actually using the app in the end and what they would want it to do. So we go more from the user point of view, try to at least. So yeah, for example, I can only give example. There was this one magazine that wanted to do additional augmented reality content, and we went through who is it reading that magazine, what do they like to do, how do they use other tools to see what we can integrate in the augmented reality app, what makes sense.
And are you familiar with rapid experimentation?
Well, rapid prototyping, yes, yeah.
And do you apply that and have the concept of deploy fast, fail fast, redeploy? How do you see that in your business, in the development, both of gaming and with the corporate or the bigger clients, the standard clients?
It's hard to do rapid prototyping when you have to put something on the App Store to have it tested, right. But we do it internally. So there's often features we suggest for a client we're not quite sure ourselves that work out or even look really well. So we do a lot of changes and rapid prototyping internally, but not on the actual deployment. That is always more or less done. Mm-hmm.
We have a question in the back.
What do you think about Facebook buying that Oculus Rift? Like, what do you think the future is going to be? Like, are we going to have events with, like,
that's my favorite question.
Having Ibiza, have an event there? Or what do you see the future?
So just to repeat the question, when you think of Facebook...
I think Facebook buying Oculus.
Yeah.
I get asked that a lot. I'm not really an Oculus representative. I just know what I like to use it for. So I'm not sure what Facebook wants to do with Oculus. They have a big customer base, they have a lot of money, so they could potentially help Oculus be independent for a while longer and develop the thing more technically. I hope they design some experience, some online meeting, whatever they want to do, from the ground up for virtual reality. I hope they don't take something existing and just try to convert it somehow, because I don't think that works. You have to really build from the ground up for virtual reality. So I don't know. I'm waiting for announcements myself. It can go really well or horribly wrong.
Do you have a mentor? Is there a gaming mentor? So like in startups, I mean, or and there's people like Seth Godin and these kind of people that you hear about a lot with this entrepreneurship and motivational in the gaming environment. Is there someone like that, or someone for you that you look up to?
Actually, we don't. Do we? I mean, we founded ourselves. There was the own money used, no investor. We have gotten the first projects on our own, and I don't know if we're doing well, but it has been sufficient so far. So there's really no mentor person guiding us or telling us how to do things. Maybe that would help, but right now there is no.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah. And do you have any motivational quotes or books that stand out to you? Are you a big reader, other than Japanese?
Yes, though I almost exclusively read like science fiction novels. No, I'm sorry. Just everyone reads Ready Player One, which is a novel about virtual reality online game, which is really good, and it has a lot of great future vision for virtual reality. But that's really the only thing I could recommend. No, just novels, sorry.
So before you got this offer, when you first decided to set up your company, were you already planning on launching your own company and doing your own gaming?
Yeah, shortly after of course, the idea was always to make your own game, because you go into this game design with, I want to do the next World of Warcraft or something, which is of course insane. But it keeps you going. And of course, the idea was always to have a game company where I could make my own games, which now I realize is much harder than I thought. It's really the idea of not working for a boss. Mm-hmm. The rest was kind of fell into place, but just being on top, like don't have someone pushing down. That was really my motivation to keep going.
And you said you've been in Zurich now 10 years?
About 8 years.
8 years.
8 years, yes.
Cool. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
How much time do you think we'll spend in virtual reality in 10 years, 20 years, 40 years? If you could say like a number per week, like hours per week?
It really depends on what you use it for. For example, if you would use it for training or use it on your job, of course, a lot. I believe there will be a lot of jobs with virtual reality in the future, like inspecting stuff or even flying drones, something like that. But as soon as there's any kind of virtual reality online game, I will be there all the time, and a lot of other gamers probably will. So 10 hours and up, and then even more in the future.
This is almost a follow-up question. For about 20 years now, the VR headset has been the future. And so did you feel the time has come? Is this a stepping stone to the holodeck, or does this feel like it could just be a dead end?
Yes. Holodeck. Yeah, talking to a Trekkie. Of course, the holodeck was always my holy grail growing up as a Trekkie. I don't believe we're there yet. So Oculus is really the first thing to be publicly available to a large group of people. They have the tools. The tools are cheap, so we can start developing. It's maybe similar to like the first generation iPhone coming out, and then look at, we have the iPhone 5 now. So give it a few years. I don't think there are enough people working on it, like researching new ways to interact or using it in more broad fields. So that could be a lot more. But yeah, I hope we'll get there soon.
Given that we're not quite at the holiday yet, what would be your dream client or your dream project right now?
Right now, there is this thing coming out in fall called Meta glasses, which are augmented reality glasses with hand tracking, which have a 3D camera here and get your depth and the hands and everything. So my dream project would be to use it for some kind of research interface. You could interact in 3D like Iron Man or something like that. That would be my dream project.
I'm wondering, you mentioned the software you're developing for the Oculus as being limited audience because the Oculus is expensive. But when I look at the Oculus, all I see is a screen and two lenses. So as a hardware, I expect it to soon become a cheap add-on to PS4, etc. So why did you say that? Like your customers are limited, I think it's going to be ubiquitous. At least not because of the same price of the hardware.
I hope so, but I still see the more, not technological distance from it, but more the social distance. Like when you're playing a game, you're in front of the screen, you can at least talk to the person. They probably won't react, but you can talk to them. With the virtual reality headset and even with the thing Sony brings out now, there is headphones on it, you have the screen, you're like in this thing. So I think many people shy away from it because it's so different and so like exclusive to the person using it. So you're putting yourself in another world, you're committing yourself for hours to not be in our world. So I think it's more social than technological. But I hope people pick it up, really.
Do you think it will have negative consequences, like on the social environment, when many people would pick this kind of thing up?
I think as long as it is tied to a computer or something you have to really have a big setup for, no, because if you're looking TV in your home or playing on this thing, it doesn't really make a difference. As soon as it gets into public spaces, maybe, because you're like really closing yourself in and really have a method to escape from the real world. And of course you have to have your money somewhere safe, because if you're sitting with the headphone and someone can just steal your wallet or so. I mean, I have this mobile thing, this Dive VR headset where you just slide in your smartphone in front, so you don't need any computer or something. And you can use that on the go. I had it with me at the conference, and after a few beer, it was a hit in the bar. But it's really something you just play with it and put away right now, because there's not much to use. But when people talk about gamers being away from reality and everyone's looking at their phone, so this will just stay in line with all the other stuff. People will complain, of course, but I will still develop for it.
I see already that you have a big divide between virtual reality and augmented reality.
Yes.
So virtual reality, what we see, for instance, with Oculus is really a kind of design world by itself, while the augmented reality is really about redesigning the existing world,
Yes.
kind of putting something new into it.
Yes.
And therefore it means also much more interaction with the existing world than what is virtual reality. So in your view, from a technology standpoint, but also entrepreneurship standpoint, what's the step that needs to be really taken in order to go from the pure virtual reality to the augmented reality? Are we far from this, or do we still need a lot of technology content to go already with something sustainable or something that works?
Actually, augmented reality is already much more widespread than virtual reality. People have been developing for it much longer, and right now everyone has the device in their pocket to use augmented reality. You just need a regular smartphone, and people are gaining a lot of acceptance for augmented reality. Actually, we have been earning most of our money with that and not really with virtual reality. I see them very, very separate. So augmented reality is something you use and put away, and virtual reality is something you commit your time to. You're committed to having this thing on your head. And augmented reality is already there. It just needs to get more widespread. But virtual reality is really something is very, very new, at least in this setup, and people don't really know what to think of it yet. So augmented reality is already there.
You were saying that the virtual reality was more of a personal commitment where you're kind of alone in your own world. My first question would be, is there something as in, for example, a multiplayer mode that you can play with this thing? And if not, wouldn't it be a good way to go to actually make it more social and to have a potentially larger market?
Of course you can do multiplayer games with that. The problem is that you then go very, very quickly into the uncanny valley. When you play single player, you maybe see your arms and legs a little bit, you're really in this world, maybe it tracks your hands and then it just works because you're in there. And as soon as it's multiplayer, you probably have to do the avatars not very human, because it's you associate, then you're in this world and other people are in this world, and it's still kind of how do I say it? It's still committing yourself to another world. It's not really a place with other people, at least not in my eyes. But I guess there's a lot of fiction about these multiplayer online games and everyone being in this thing and just hanging on their lifelines, lying in the bed. And maybe we'll get there. I don't know. Might be a bit dystopian, but if everyone's happy in the virtual world, why not?
As a game designer, what's the best part for you and what's the most challenging part for you?
The best part is taking experiences from all your life and everything you have to put into game design. That goes from gameplay design to just how the sky looks in the evening. So you can really take everything and put it into a game. You need to know how it works and feels to be able to recreate it so people can really feel it and have fun with it. What I like to do personally the most is level design. So there's the game designer that designs the rules, and there's the environment designer who designs how it looks. And level design is making sure everything works and still looks like the environment designer wanted it to. And that is the fun part for me.
What do you think of this discussion that's going through the media of like these shooter games, like changing a bit like the perception or like even the empathy, like on violence and like kids going a bit overboard?
That question has been discussed a lot. Personally, I think they're just trying to make an excuse. You can really pin it on everything in their lives, but games is just something you can just publicly tell people that's bad, because it's just nothing that brings anything for your life, nothing worth, just something you play. For me personally, shooters are the other way around. So if I'm really mad, I go kill some people in the game and then it's better. So I think it's more, for a lot of people, more a release kind of strategy. But I think media is really just making excuses.
A little bit more. What is augmented reality?
Oh, augmented reality. So it is layering, like augmenting the real world, putting additional information and another layer of interaction on the real world. So you have this thing called targets. They can really be anything. You have them placed in the real world, and you map digital information on it. You can access by looking at it with your camera. So I could use this as a target, and if I look at it with my camera, there's additional information, like I can click the link to the website directly, or there is a little bird flying around. So it's just augmenting, putting an additional layer on the real world.
Very interesting.
What do they use that for? Like what would you use that for example?
Augmented reality. We use it right now for mainly like marketing purposes, really, where you can show stuff that's not there yet, or people will want to buy, or additional information that helps you. We did, like I mentioned with the magazine, you can just look at the article and see the link to the website and information about the author, or more pictures and something like that in digital space related to the article. We also did an augmented reality exhibition, for example, for the Red Cross, eastern part of Switzerland, where you could experience, there were pictures on the walls, and you could experience audio and video and 3D content through your iPad, walking through the exhibition, to give a more detailed and more emotional approach to the exhibition matter.
So yeah, Janina will be around still after we wrap up this little part. So any further details or questions, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to clarify and get into discussions. We have a few last questions for you. Just some quick questions with some short answers from you. So let's see how this goes. So what item do you own that you would never sell?
I own a plushie of a kangaroo I got when I was 2. I still have it. I would never sell that.
What is your most unusual skill?
I can lick my elbow.
What's more important, strength? Yay!
Try it. Try it.
So what's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
For me, stamina, because strength and speed go away very quickly if you use too much, and stamina keeps you going.
What historical figure do you most admire?
Oh, I thought about that a lot. The default answer is probably Marie Curie, because I like sciencey stuff, but in the end, really everyone who's involved with space exploration. So that's a lot of people, but space.
What's the best compliment that someone could give you?
Compliment me on the work well done.
And what's the best compliment that you give to others?
Pretty much the same, very well researched work. I like that a lot.
And who do you think does a good job?
That's very personal. There is one guy in Japan building a thing called Smart Doll, which is a robotic doll that should act as your smartphone. And I think he does a really good job on that because I want one.
What is your favorite season?
Winter, because I hate the sun. It's much too warm in summer. I have to go to the beach, which I don't like. And in winter, I can just sit at home and game without a bad conscience, and there's a lot of snow.
When was the last time you tried something new?
The weekend, actually. I tried a lot of new wines from the Lausanne region, where I was at the conference. They had a big wine tasting. Very good wine.
And if you could have the attribute of any animal, what would you choose?
That was new. I'll go with fish breathing underwater.
That's pretty cool. Well, it's been very nice getting to know more about you.
Thank you.
Do we have any last questions? One last question? If not, then we'll wrap up. But it's been interesting to understand better about what you're doing in virtual reality, as well as your background and your experience in entrepreneurship. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.